Absolutely.
All right, we're going. We are actually we're recording now. So, number one, thank you for jumping on board with us as far as your training and so forth. This is your session. That I really mean that. I want you to just turn this to be, how can I help you? What's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest question? What can I help you with?
Okay. My biggest challenge at this point is in engaging the client, future clients, or you have your client, and you're trying to lead them into what is important to them and how coaching is going to help them understand what they need to do, what they want to do. And some people are so wounded from their past that they don't know what that is. They don't know how to determine what they want to do because they've just been so broken.
Right. So now, so you've got some. We're taking an example. Let's say Tom, and Tom, you're already working with, but they're not seeing the value of coaching, or they're not seeing the validity, or why they should continue with you, or what's a better.
They don't see the value in themselves.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, and so this is going to be really important because this is in coaching, this is in ministry, this is in counseling, this is in business. People are afraid to make decisions because they've made bad decisions in the past. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, we've all made bad decisions somewhere in the past. And so when we think about making a decision, whether it's to receive coaching or buy something, automatically we start thinking, oh no, what if this doesn't work? What have I done wrong in the past? And you're right, they don't think they deserve it. So one of the most important things you can do is well, let me ask you before I get into a remedy for that. What signs or what clues are you getting that they're not worth it? That they don't feel they're worth it?
They have a hard time identifying what's important to them. They've dreamed and it hasn't worked. To your point, it's never worked before. Why is this different? I've tried, I've failed. They're approaching it from a failure mentality. How do you turn that mentality around to where you can really do this?
Yeah.
They're just meeting me and they don't know me, whereas if it was a friend, I would know them. I would know their personality and their likes and dislikes to a point. But a person that you're just meeting and you want to coach, how do you get them to trust you that take that step?
Yeah, that's good. Here's how you do it. Number one, when you're really in the criteria, what's important to you about, and that's powerful. But a lot of times what happens is they've never been asked that. What's important to you about a pizza? Well, pepperonis, that's easy. What's important to you about a car? I want it red. But when you get into real life matters, sometimes they start trying to process, and they're not used to that. We don't live in a world of process. It's A or B. What do I feel good about? And immediately we do it. So it's hard to process. So what you have to do is you have to ask them the questions, and then you have to listen for the keywords, and then you've kind of got to just spend some time with them where they're at. And for a lot of people, they're not going to move as quickly, but to help them recognize they're worth it, you demonstrate it. And what I mean by that is, I want to hear your story, and you listen. Years ago, I went through a coach, and she said, okay, I want to hear your story. And I said, okay, well, I'm a minister, I'm a coach, and blah, blah. She said, no, I want to hear your entire story. What is your first memory? And I thought, that's weird. I was 3 years old. She said, well, tell me about it. And I said, well, I was 3 years old, and my mom woke me up. I know it was 3 because it was my birthday, because she said, look outside the window. There was a swing set, and I was a mama's boy. But, and so I remember that. And so then She said, what's your next major memory? Do you have any sisters? Do you have any brothers? And so we spent over an hour on this. She wanted to know, and some things I didn't share, but she wanted to know when I first broke the law, did something illegal, did I ever do drugs? When's the first time I had sex? She wanted to go into things. I'm like, why am I telling you this? But I've shared only what I felt comfortable. But at the end of 1 hour, she said, on our next session, we're going to go into some of these. And I realized, you know what? She really pulled stuff out of me. And unconsciously, I trusted her, probably because why would I share this with anybody I don't trust? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so sometimes you just got to slow down, because what it is as a coach, a consultant, I see the problem. I see the problem quick. But they have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if somebody wants to sell me, let's go back to the pizza. It doesn't matter how they explain the pizza or how great the pizza looks if I'm not hungry. But if I can discover I'm hungry myself, then all of a sudden sounds like a great idea. Now, they could ask me questions. When was the last time you ate? What's important to you in a pizza? But the point is, you've got to spend time with that person and get that person to trust you for you. And also, one of the things you've got to do is really listen for or see where there's some hesitancy. So let me ask you, let me just role play for a minute. What's important to you about coaching? What's important to you about being a coach?
What's important to me about being a coach is that I want to be able to help people be the best you they can be. I want them to see their potential and be able to walk into that, be able to see what the barriers and the obstructions are in their lives to where they can overcome that and take the steps they need to get to their purpose and their destiny.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Why do you think that's so important to you? I mean, that's great. I agree with you. But why in your own personal life is that so important?
In my personal life, I never had that. No one ever saw my value. No one ever poured into me. No one ever helped me understand who I was and why I did anything.
Yeah.
So I pretty much raised myself, and I've often wondered if I'd had support, if I'd had direction, if I had had someone to help me understand different situations and thoughts and mindsets, I may have had a different outcome.
Yeah.
And so I want to help people avoid what I didn't have, or be able to overcome similar situations and go forward.
Yeah, that's so awesome, because I had a lot of loving people in my life, but it was pretty much they lived on autopilot. You know what I mean? If you were handed a blessing, it was God. If you were handed something bad, it was the devil. And it was just, so there was no personal responsibility.
Right.
This is the hand you were dealt. Do the right thing and let God sort it out, and the enemy's going to come against you. So, wow. You said you never had it. When do you feel like was a turning point for you? When did you start to realize I'm in control of my life and I have to take responsibility? Is there a certain time that you remember, or?
I knew early on that everything was up to me. My decisions were my own. My actions were my own. The consequences were my own. And it made me too independent, where I was not able to trust. I was not able to ask for help. I was not able to realize or recognize when I needed help.
That's good.
I literally flew by the seat of my pants my whole life.
Okay. And thinking about it now, but if you think right now, where you realize you can be responsible for situations, even if you were not responsible for them happening. Bad things happen to great people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not responsible that it happens, but you can be responsible for your actions. And that balance where you're independent and dependent, where you're really connected with people. That's what I'm hearing. And when you think about that, that's a daily challenge.
Right.
You can wake up feeling depressed, or you can wake up feeling so independent that you do try to do things without the help of others. And so I think a balance there, if you come together in balance, that's a beautiful place. And see, what you told me there without telling me, and I'm gonna cut this role play short,
Mm-hmm.
because I could go really deep with this. I love this. But reason I'm cutting it short is what you've got here is, you said in the beginning you want to be able to help, and that's great. But you really got down to some things that were starting to hit the heart. If you were too independent, you became fly by the seat of the pants, and so when you really got into some emotional part, what you've done there is you kind of reverse engineered your story. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so everybody has a story. The people
Sure.
that you're trying to coach, they have a story. They probably never had to tell it. And I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but one thing I want you to start thinking about is, how can you craft your story to let them know I'm like you?
Ah.
Okay. Because when you begin to craft your story, I started the story about the woman who asked me about my whole life. Stories begin to shift thought patterns. Stories begin to build rapport. People have rapport with you when they hear one of your stories. And so, and through the telling of the story, you're looking at the person, which is why I wanted to do this by video, because you get to see that when they start shaking their head, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you've connected on something. That's why you have pen and paper ready and you're taking notes and you're listening. If you're doing it by phone, I tell people I'm really good on phone because I've done thousands of hours of phone calls and phone counseling, phone coaching. I can hear it almost.
Sure.
But in the beginning, it was tough. And so I went asked 10,000 questions. But now it's easier. But you want to be able to get that person in by doing your story. Who are you? Because they're trusting you. And there's something called vulnerability. When people know you're vulnerable, you're not perfect, and all of a sudden they can relate with that. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So I often tell of my vulnerable moments. I tell about my mom dying. I tell about my father. I talk about going through a divorce. I talk about starting multiple businesses and failing them. I don't just throw it all out there like, hey, I've been divorced. This has happened. So what? Who hasn't? I have to make it a story.
Right.
I remember the time when I'm gonna go ahead. We're being filmed, but I don't care. I remember the time when my ex-wife left, and my 4-year-old son is sitting there crying. And I remember the bed. He was standing on the end of the bed. He could hold on to me, and I can still remember the pain. I still remember the looks on his eyes, his little freckles, and just crying. He didn't want to leave, and it was devastating. But what it taught me was I can't change the situation, but I can be responsible for the future outcome of that.
Right.
So, Mr. or Miss Client, what you've gone through, you may have had no way to stop that. Think of the people in 9/11 towers, that not the ones that died, that's horrible, but the ones that were left.
Right.
Their family members and their moms and dads and daughters and sons. That they can't change. Nothing they did caused those planes to hit those towers. But what they can do is go, how can I be resilient in this and overcome and be a blessing to someone else and find peace? So stories like that begin to, you tell a story, people can connect with you. So storytelling is important. Secondly, is to get them to tell a story. So,
Right.
Mr. Client, why do you feel the way you feel? What was it was it something you heard, or was it something that why do you feel like this is important? Can you tell me, and even ask people, can you share a story with me?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good.
And when you usually ask people, can you share a story? They're going to go, Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. And so then what you want to do is your language is very important here. You want to say, well, if you could. Well, if you had to share a story, just a simple story. And so when you tell people, if you could, if you had to say, it's just language patterns that get people in a consciousness of, okay, if I had to say, well, it was a story about my divorce. It was a story about this. And what you're looking for is not always one event, but a series of events. Sometimes one event's what people hold on to. That one event.
Right.
And so the next thing, so I'm trying to go through this quick because I'm going to give you some homework to do with this. First, let me do that homework first. I want you to write out a story of your life. If you would, just a story of what you've gone through. And again, nothing that you don't want to share with people. And you don't have to make it a sob story. It can be, but a story of overcoming, where you're from. Why did they want to share? Why do you want to coach with you? And so a story of what you've overcome. In fact, let me grab a hold of, I'm going to give you a good amount of homework. Come up with maybe 5 life events or moments that had positive and negative. I mean, it can be a mixture. Not 5 bad, not 5 good, but 5. And for each moment, I want you to really look at how one sensory detail that stood out. I'm kind of getting into storytelling here, and I didn't want to get too deep in that, but one sensory detail. Maybe you saw something. Maybe you remember what it sounded like. Maybe you could smell something, taste something, whatever it is. And really, what emotion came with that? Now, next time we talk, we'll go deeper onto that. How do you make that? How do you bring that into a place? But like my story, I talked about the bed. I talked about my son standing on the end of the bed, his freckles. I painted an image, even though you've never seen my son, you can probably imagine this little 4-year-old boy.
Right.
Tears rolling down his cheeks. So, the emotional attachment there is still strong on me, but I've learned that it is a part of life. And I've learned to forgive and love, and I've learned to move on. So, and you really want to look at a universal core value. What did that mean to me? The core value was my son would always be part of my life, even if our family structure was torn. See, what is the core value that you can bring from or help people through based on what they're telling you?
Okay.
Now, this is your story. So then you want to get them telling me, and here's the thing, remember in coaching or in sales or in marketing or in preaching the word of God, you want to bring home a point, a value. You want to bring home one, you want to work on one problem, have one solution. You're doing a coaching session and they're going in 15 different ways. You're never going to get to the, that's not going to work. You've got to hone in on one area and really help them in that one area.
Okay, Ken. Yeah, so we had some technical difficulties, but we're back.
Yeah.
So the point I was really trying to make is that when you do the storytelling, stories relax people. Stories capture people from a place of, a lot of times people need to see you've been there. They need to know what you felt, and they need to know what you discovered. In sales, it's an old feel, felt, found. For example, if I said, hey, I don't want to invest in life insurance today, you may go, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way years ago when I had this going on. What I found out was the older you become, the more life insurance costs or whatever. So feel, felt, found. And so that's what a story does. It basically says, wow, I get them. They're like me. And then they had this epiphany. They had this moment. They had this discovery. And for instance, let me give you an example, Kim. You could even say, and you go into your story about not having someone to push you or believe in you, and because of that, and again, put it in your own words, how you became too independent, and what that did for you. And then as you discovered that and it became an awakening to you, you began to make changes. And you talk about the changes you did, everything from, and I don't know what all your changes you did make, and then I became a certified life coach. And in that, I learned a blueprint to help people. So maybe I haven't been exactly where you're at, Mr. or Miss Prospect or Mr. or Mr.
Right.
Client, but I know that I've walked a similar journey, and I've got the tools to help you. And I'd love to share with you how that works. And then you're watching or you're listening for feedback, and then you can immediately go into your criteria. So let me ask you, what's important to you about whatever that is? Or if there was one area, Susan, that I could help you with today, what area would you really want to find breakthrough or find peace in? Or what one area that you really want to move forward in life? Because remember, too, we're not counselors, we're coaches. And so a lot of times when people find someone that will hear, an ear to hear, they want you to become the counselor. And that's, if you're trained in that, you're ready for it, great. But remember, as a coach, we're going to try to remedy that as quick as we can and get them back onto their track of where they're heading in life. What are they looking to do? Because people will give you 110 reasons why they can't do something. We're not looking for that. We're looking for the one reason why they will, no matter what.
Right.
So resilience is it's inborn. I really believe that, to be resilient and to push. It's inborn, like a child that can never crawl, and then they crawl, and they can't walk, but they walk. They can't talk, but they talk. It's the resilience won't let them stop. But then we become an adult, and we have one failed marriage or one failed relationship or one bad, sales job, and all of a sudden we give up everything.
Right.
So now let me say this too, and I'm not saying this doesn't mean towards you, but towards everything in life, for whoever's listening to this, be willing to be bad long enough to become good. Be willing to be bad long enough to become good. Like, okay, I'm not great at, technology. I get that a lot. I get that so much. Well, Wayne, I'm just not good with technology. Okay, great. So what are you going to do to become good at technology? Because if you're not going to become good at technology, you're going to either hire somebody, outsource it, or you're going to fail miserably in the business world. Because people use technology. Well, Wayne, I'm not really good in sales. I'm not really good in marketing. Great. That's okay. But we have to know where we're at. But what are you willing to do to change that? Well, Wayne, I don't want to, one thing I've learned in the business world is when you work with people, you need to be almost all things to all people. You've got to be that therapist sometimes. You've got to be that coach. You've got to be the motivator. You've got to be the ear to hear, and that's going to change. And that's important that you can be that chameleon, but it's also important to remember where you're going at the end of the day. You want to change people's lives.
Right.
And you want to get paid for doing it.
Right.
Right. And so that is something you have to be very vocal in your own life. I change people's lives, and I get paid very well for doing it. And so when you tell people that, it may be looking at the woman in the mirror and going, I change people's lives, and I get paid. I get paid for doing it. I get paid very well for doing it. And so then you begin to work with that person. Is there any one client, that you've worked with or been talking to, or somebody, and please don't use any names, but anybody that you got a specific situation with?
I do have a friend that I've been working with, and when I asked her what was important to her, she teared up because for her personally, she had never done anything for herself. Everything that she always does is for everyone else but her. And
Right.
she feels like her life is on hold until the kids are raised or the husband is retired or, you know, everybody else's needs come before hers.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So she gave you that criteria. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so my first approach with her was, okay, well, let's look at what is important to you. If you didn't have to be full-time devoting to your children and your husband, what is it that you would do if you had unlimited time or if you had unlimited resources? And it was very hard for her to even let herself imagine what that would be.
Yeah. And the reason it was hard is because it's going to somebody that's lost hope and saying, and lost hope and never walking again. And you're saying, hey, let's imagine this marathon race. Mm-hmm. When they'd really just love to get up and walk to the refrigerator. And so what you do in those situations is first of all, it was great. If you didn't feel totally, you know, obligated to everybody else and everything else that's going on in their life. That's a great question. But then you want to follow it up with, what is one area? You want micro commitments. And if they go, I don't know. Well, okay, but if you had to say, this is important, this is something I would like to accomplish, what would it be? If you had to say. And just one area. And so what you want to do is find that one small area. I have a coaching client that I've worked with for years. He was a project manager in India, and his problem was procrastination. So he felt like a failure in every area of life. But what we helped him with was a very small 21-day project. Very small, took about 10 minutes a day for 21 days because I had to teach him consistency. At the end of that, he was ecstatic. He took on another project and another project and another project. What he learned was how he could accomplish things. And he accomplished things a lot like me. I'm a very systematic A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If I can follow that, I can get to any accomplishment. But it's got to be a fuel behind it that makes it a reality. Why is this important? Well, I'll give up somewhere between A and B. And so everyone has their own different strategies for accomplishing. They have their own strategies for making something work. So your friend, the tearing up shows that there's an emotional attachment. There's something inside that wants to come out.
Right.
There's something. And so here's how you get them to release that. Number one is you ask for micro commitments. Number two, if they can't verbalize it, some people have a hard time verbalizing things. What I would do is say, listen, let's get together, and I don't know if you're meeting her face-to-face or by phone, but let's get together in another 7 days, 5 days, whatever it is. And what I want you to do in between that time is I just want you to take one piece of paper, just a single piece of paper, and I just want you to write out one thing that you would want to see accomplished in the next 12 months that would make it feel like this is all about you. It's not about family and it's not about, responsibility. It's about you. What is that one thing? I want you to write it out. And I don't want you to, and just tell them, write it out without any judgment, without any guilt, shame, condemnation. Don't judge it based on morality or what people would think. Just be truthful. If it's something harmful, we'll get to that later and we'll work on that. But we've got to get it out. And when they write it out or she verbalizes it, then that's level one. And you can always go deeper and deeper and get a couple, as we talked about in the course.
Right.
And when you give somebody a hope, when you give someone something they can strive for, they can achieve, then step by step by taking micro commitments. Let me share with you micro commitments from the simplicity of a child, which sometimes we need to get back to. My daughter had this toy she wanted. It was $60. And she's already spoiled as the day's long. So we're like, no, you don't need it.
Yeah.
But if you want to earn it, so her mom gives her $2 a week. She has responsibilities. But micro commitments, unloading the dishwasher, she might get 10 cents. I mean, if she gets sassy, she might lose 50 cents. So it's a up and down. But my point is, at the end of, she got her $60 up, and then by then though, she said, "Wait a minute, I've done all of this work, and I've got all of this money," and she counted it every day. She thought she was rich. She said, and she didn't even want to count in tax and all that. We were just going to cover that for her. And she said, "Wait a minute, I don't know if I want to spend it all on that one toy. I could buy 10 of these toys." Well, she ended up spending about $20 of it, and she's got 40. Now she's building back a reserve. And I was like, yes, because what we think we want, this is the coaching key, what we think we want, if it was handed to us immediately, a lot of times we wouldn't, if we didn't have to strive for it and learn and develop, isn't really what we want. And at the end, it wasn't for her. Now, that's a 7-year-old with toys, but it's so true in the adult world. So you want her, your friend, whoever your coaching client is, to give you small commitments in the beginning, because a lot of times when they're on the phone with us or face to face with us, they'll go, "This is what I want. This is my big outcome. This is my big goal." I had another gentleman that wanted to work for Google. I have to work for Google. I have to. And so if you coach me to get me to work for Google, you do whatever, I'll do what I got to do. I'll listen to you. And in the first conversation of developing criteria, see, if I didn't go deep, I would have really tried to find connections for him at Google. How can we find connections? What do you need? How do you interview for a job? And there's a secret to interviewing for jobs. Powerful. But I would have went that route. But I finally realized he didn't want a job at Google. He wanted to feel important.
Ah.
And Google or Facebook or LinkedIn was his kind of niche. He's a social media guy. But if he worked for one of those companies, just as a low-level employee, I work for Google, he would have felt important because he wasn't recognized in his own circle.
Mm-hmm.
When we helped him become recognized in his own circle for something, he found significance in something he could do, that he no longer wanted that job anymore. Because he realized now he's got freedom to live his own life. So what you really got, again, stories matter. Their story is their reality. Their story is the only reality they know. Because we talked about the mind map. And so their mental map, that's the only story they know. Find out what makes them cry. What makes them laugh. And when you find those two, you can really help that person. And understand this too. People make decisions. People make decisions out of emotion and emotion only, and try to back it up with logic. So when you're working with someone and they don't know, they can't see their own value, as we said in the beginning, they don't see their own worth.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, that's just an emotional attachment. It doesn't have anything to do with validity. There's many, many great people, that have given back to society that felt worthless and killed themselves. I mean, my goodness, look at Robin Williams. The laughter and joy he brought to people that took his own life.
Yeah.
And so we want to help people achieve, but they've got to understand what that achievement looks like to them. So, couple of things. Number one, work on your story, because your story is going to let people know that they connect.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
You want to look at I think I said 5. Yeah, give me 5 life events or moments that had positive and negative. A sensory detail. What does it taste? How did it feel? What did I see? What do I remember? And what did that emotionally do for me? Was it connected with my self-esteem? Was it connected with family? Was it connected with, whatever it could be? What is it really connecting with? Integrity, a core value. And then once you've got that, begin to write it out in a way that doesn't how do I say this? You want it to really touch people where they're at. That's the art of storytelling. I'll help you with that. You want it to be short, brief, concise, but you've got to pull emotions up. When I told that story about my son, I felt emotions in me.
I felt
and if I feel, and you felt them, to exactly what I was going to say, emotions are contagious. So you want that person to feel that emotion, and then you want them to know, hey, but here you don't want to have a pity party with them. But this is the greatness that came from it. You want to leave every coaching session, every person, every relationship, you want to leave it on a positive note. For the people that are listening, that are in sales and marketing, whether you're marketing, whatever you're marketing, never leave a relationship, if possible, on a bad note. Even if the relationship ends, how can we leave this on a good note? How can I leave at least with hint of possibility of future gain or future promise or something? I used to go out with a gentleman, and we were selling life insurance, and we would door knocking, door to door, and that's tough. But we ended one night. One just really just cursed us out, get off my property, and I was like, I'm through. He's like, no, you never end on a negative. I'm like, did you just experience what I just experienced? We never leave on a negative. So we went back. We found one that wasn't rude to us, but they didn't buy life insurance, but they were nice to us. Invited us in, laughed, cut up. Now we can end the day. You want to end on a positive anytime you can. So, okay, here's where we're at. I want you to, and we'll follow up with this in a week or so, come up with your story.
All right.
And then I want you to really ask yourself, and you don't have to have all the right answers, but just to begin to ask yourself, how can I make someone feel worthy? At least worthy enough to receive coaching. How can I make them feel valuable? And one of the things I've done in sales, now this is totally off coaching, but it can relate. One of the ways I've made people feel important or feel worthy of an investment and buying whatever I was selling was if I failed it. And first of all, you got to really be truthful in this. Is I would let them know you're worth this.
Mm-hmm.
Because many people have never been told you're worth this. Mr. Prospect, I know the car is $100 a month more than you wanted to pay. But if it's still in your budget, you're worth it. Because you go to work every day. You come home every day. You are worth it. I had a friend that used to eat out every day, and another friend said, how do you do it every day? Why don't you take a sandwich or something? Why don't you, you're spending $10 a day for lunch? That's crazy. Why do you do that? And he responded back, he said, because I get up and I work 10 hours a day. And if I give my life for 10 hours a day, I think it's worth a $10 lunch.
Mm.
He had to justify his reason. But if you'll tell the person you're talking with, I want to help you. I want to change your life. I want to help you overcome this area. I'm certified. I'm trained. And I know I can help you. And I want to tell you that you're worth it. You're worth meeting with me one more time. And let's go a little deeper. You're worth me giving you some answers. And just let them know you're worth it. And sometimes you got to let them know. Nobody may have ever given you permission to succeed in life. I'm giving you permission to succeed. I am giving you the permission you need to go and make your life the wonderful life it's meant to be. And sometimes that's all they need to hear. Somebody giving them permission. So,
okay, that's good.
Okay, and I don't want to get any deeper because that's enough homework.
Okay.
But I think that'll help you. And
Yeah,
and come up with it. And in fact, I said 5 stories or 5 situations. They don't have to all be stories, but 5 situations that you could use as a reference point, as a story. So really try to come up with 2 stories, a positive and a negative. And the beauty is once you've done as many of these as I have, these coaching sessions, it'll be really, really easy to share with people. Let me share you a story. And not that you give client information out, but you'll know situations where you've helped people. So. Okay. Any other thoughts? Because I could go on with this all day, but I don't want to overload you on one phone call either.
No, this is good. This is a good starting point. For another conversation, perhaps. I have another friend that wants to do nothing for herself but follow in her husband's footsteps. Whatever he says they're a ministry couple, and whatever he says they go and do, that's what they go and do. She has no desire, no dream, no plan to do anything separate and apart from what he does.
Quite one question, is she happy with that?
On the surface, she says yes, but she will never open up and admit that she's not. But you can see it when you ask her, well, what is it that you want to do? What is the Lord put in you that you want to work at and what you're called to? Oh, it's just to follow him. No.
Yeah.
No. But.
Okay, well then, so here's the thought. When someone says that, and because number one, it could be a place of truth, at least external. I'm happy to do that, just to follow him. One of the things is just imagine. Well, just imagine though for a moment. Let's say not now, but let's say just imagine a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. You've got some time to yourself, and there's something you've always wanted to do, and you're able to do it, and at the same time fully commit to following him. What would it be? I'm just curious. I'm just curious is a great question, a great opener. At
good.
Some point in the future, if we never get out of storytelling because imagination, God gave us this imagination. But and if she says, well, maybe I've always wanted to, and you can even ask, is anything that you've always wanted to? Not now. Not now. You're doing a great thing. You're supporting your husband. It's great. But not now, but maybe one day. Well, I'm curious, what would it be? What would it be? And you smile and you bring that excitement. What would it be? You've got to get in state to get them in state.
Gotcha.
And then whatever they tell you, you listen to it and say, wow, is there any part of that we could start today? I mean, even in the background, even just something. And she may say absolutely no. And you can't help somebody that will not be helped. But if you can bring up that spark, dare to dream. John Maxwell has a book, and I'll end on this, a small book called Dare to Dream. I'm at a Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm eating lunch. A little waitress comes over, and she's first of all, and she almost interrupted me because I'm reading. I'm like, okay, just get my food. I'm not being rude, I don't think, but I'm like, I'm reading. I'm really
You're
into
not
this
engaging.
stuff,
Yeah.
Not engaging. And then I realized, okay, I'm being rude. And she says, what are you reading? She's still trying to be nice. And I looked at it and I thought, what an opportunity. I said, it's called Dare to Dream. I said, I'm curious, Brittany or whatever her name was. I'm curious, Brittany. what's something that maybe was a dream in your life that you've always wanted to do and you haven't done it yet? Because she's probably early 20s here, you know. She's a college kid probably. If you haven't done it yet, maybe even you felt like, I don't know if it'll ever come true. But what if it could? What's one dream? I'm just curious. And she looked up. She looked up in the sky for a moment. She looked right back. And she said, and she grinned, the biggest grin she had. She said, I've always wanted to be a professional dancer. She said, not like an exotic stripper. No. I mean, real dancer. And I said, okay, that's good. And I said, what's important to you about that? First, she went on about a minute about it. And I said, well, what's important to you about that, Brittany? And she looked, she pulled the chair out beside me and sat down and just poured her heart out.
Oh. And
she said, you know, but I'm in school. And then after all of the excitement, she started giving her reasons why. But I'm in school and, you know, it's hard. And I don't really have anywhere here. I can get study, and da. I said, okay. So I listened. I said, okay, but all of that stuff you told me why you can't do it, I don't know how temporary that is. Maybe it's 60 days, 90 days. Maybe it's the next 2 years. But let that be a temporary bubble. But let the dream still grow and grow and grow during that time. And keep holding on to it. And if I never see you again, I can know that you're going to make that dream become reality. If I do see you again, maybe it's on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
And she just lit up again. I said, I don't know, but that's going to be up to you. And I gave her the book.
Wow.
People will remember. She may never meet me again. She'll remember this rude guy ordered buffalo wings and became. He gave me this book and he talked to me about my dreams, and that's what you've got to be. But you've got to get people dreaming. Because if you can't get them to imagine, then they go right back into a place of complacency, fear. This is what the world's done to me. God gave me good, devil gave me bad, and that's where they're stuck. And we've got to get them out of that. So, all right. So keep that in thought. Start looking. One of the things we are going to be doing is a storytelling class, which I will go a lot deeper than this. But I think the basics of share stories, because we don't want to be an interrogator with questions. We want to be poetic in it.
Right,
and then let the questions bring forth the truth. So, all right. You've got my number. Now, if anybody listening, 910-233-2511, 910-233-2511, real person, real phone. I'll talk to you. And if you haven't downloaded our book, for those listening, lifecoachlifestyle.com, lifecoachlifestyle.com. It'll share the 9-week program that Kim went through and the blueprint plus a lot of other new stuff that we're adding every day. Kim, will you take 30 seconds and just your thoughts on the course for those who maybe haven't got involved yet or got involved and haven't finished the course yet? What did you gain out of it? What was important to you about the course? What did you get out of the course?
The course was phenomenal. It showed me who I was. It exposed areas that I didn't realize I was closed off or stuck. And it helped me see that not only is this good for the client, but me as well. And it just opened up avenues for me to think and dream and believe and see the possibilities. It opened up my mind to be able to try new things that I'd never considered. And so it was really, I would go through it for me, and then I would go through the class a second time, the course a second time on behalf of the client. And then I would okay, I got to take all this in, but I couldn't wait to go to the next lesson. It was just so awesome.
Good. Well, thank you so much. We really have enjoyed doing the class. I'm glad it was a blessing to you.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited. I'm so excited to see now that we're doing these weekly trainings with graduates, some one-on-one. We're going to be doing some of them with group. There's just I told you when you signed up, you don't just get a course, you get me, and I'm in it. And that's what we're trying to bring to people. No, I appreciate it.
You've been very generous with your time, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, I appreciate it. Okay, guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed this. If you're seeing this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're in the group, you're seeing this in the back office, go back and listen to it again. I have found that when we do a training, if you'll listen to it once, you'll gain some knowledge. If you listen to it 2 or 3 times, you'll gain something. You go, oh, wow, I can use that in this part of my life. So this is Wayne Sutton, and I will talk with you all soon. God bless.